උත්තමාචාරය ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
Hello there, greetings from Colombia everybody. I'm Hassan Shazali here with the lunchtime news broadcast on News First, where the people come first. Let's first take a look at the headlines this hour. April 21st attacks marked 3 years on. Why did the police erase details of the Rambukkana killing? Cannot deliver gas until 25th due to shortage, says Litrogas. Will India lend another $500 million to purchase fuel? Emergency humanitarian assistance from China to Sri Lanka. SJB submits its draft proposals for a new constitution to the Speaker. And we start off this afternoon with a tragic story. 3 days ago, on a day like this, more than 250 people lost their lives on Easter Sunday. The April 21st attacks has left an indelible scar in the hearts of many. Families are still grieving over the loss of their loved ones as they wait for answers that has continued to evade them. Worshippers who were attending Easter Sunday masses at churches across the country were struck by a tragedy that would leave them scarred for life. On that fateful morning, explosions were reported at 3 churches and 3 hotels, claiming the lives of more than 250 people, leaving their families in shock and despair. The St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitia, St. Anthony's Shrine in Kochikade, and the Zion Church in Batticaloa, along with the Kingsbury, Shangri-La and Cinnamon Grand hotels were targets. An explosion was also reported at the Tropical Inn Lodge in Dehiwala later. The attacks were blamed on groups backed by fundamentalism, terrorism and even extremism. However, it was the innocent people not belonging to any of these groups who fell victims to the attacks. Among the lives lost were 38 foreigners who were on vacation in Sri Lanka, totally unaware of what might befall them on that day. 3 years later, the wounds are fresh for more than 500 people who were injured in the bombings. Instead of searching for the masterminds of these horrific bombings, the people have only seen various people being named as conspirators. While many have been arrested and some released on bail, the victims continue to shed tears in memory of their loved ones who would never return again. Justice continues to evade them as those in political offices use terms such as fundamentalism, extremism and terrorism for mere political campaigning. According to the Old Testament, Easter marks the escape of Jews from slavery in ancient Egypt. But when will justice be served upon these victims who have waited for 3 years for answers?
විඳ ඇත්ත කිසිවෙක් ඔවුන්ගෙන්
The grief continues to live on in the hearts of many families who lost their loved ones on a day like this in 2019. Now, Sri Lankan opposition leader Shadid Premadasa told Parliament that he has informed the Archbishop of Colombo in writing that a future government will renew investigations to punish those responsible for the April 21st attacks.
පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය වෙලා අදට අවුරුදු 3ක් වෙනවා.
It's been 3 years since the April 21st attacks took place. The Catholic community is waiting for justice to be served, but that has not happened. I would like to request that the President, the respective Minister and the Attorney General's Department to implement the recommendations made in the Presidential Commission of Inquiry report.
ජනතාවට යුක්තිය සාධාරණත්වයේ ඉටු කරන්න කියන එක අවුරුදු 3ක් ගත වෙන මේ අවස්ථාවේදී මම ගෞරවයෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා බලයට එන්නේ මේ පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය සිද්ධ කරා කුමන්ත්‍රණය.
There is an attempt being made to create an opinion that the President came to power through a conspiracy based on the April 21st attacks. When Dapula de Oliveira was about to retire, he had said that the April 21st attacks was a conspiracy. It is he who spread this view. I have prepared a letter addressed to the Attorney General's Department for the expeditious implementation of the Presidential Commission recommendations. We can't influence the judiciary. This will happen via the Attorney General's Department. I can responsibly say that I, along with the government, will take measures to serve justice to those affected.
අපේ ආණ්ඩුවත් කටයුතු කරනවා කියන එක මතක් කරන්න ඕනේ.
මේ වෙලාවේ අඩු ගානේ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ පුංචි.
If there is a possibility to observe a moment of silence for those who died, I propose to the Speaker to do so. I also pray that justice would be served this year.
මේ මහ පොළොව මත ඉටිවිය යුතුයි කියන යෝජනාවත්
කනගාටු මන්තුමා එහෙම නිශ්ශබ්දතාවය පිළිබඳ යෝජනාවක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට හැකියාවක් නොමැති බව තමයි මට දැනලා තියෙන්නේ.
අපේ ස්ටෑන්ඩින් ඕඩර්ස් පසක දමලා
Let's put aside the standing order and observe silence for at least 30 seconds as a mark of respect for the deceased.
ඒ ම්ලේච්ඡ ප්‍රහාරයෙන් මියගිය සියලු දෙනාටම අපේ ගෞරවය ප්‍රණාමය පුද කරමු. අපි මේ අවස්ථාවේ අතියුතුම් කාඩිනල් මැල්කම්
At this moment, we have written to His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, pleading that we will call for a transparent, independent and efficient investigation to penalize the masterminds and all those connected to it. We will not only bring them before the law, we will also impose the maximum punishments on them. This pledge will be tabled in Parliament.
මම කැමති මේ අවස්ථාවේ මේ ලිඛිත ප්‍රතිඥාව සහ පොරොන්දුව සභාගත කරන්න.
On the same note, away from Parliament, a special program was held at the St. Anthony's Church in Kochigade this morning to remember the victims of the 2019 April 21st attacks. The church was one of the targeted sites of the bombing that year.
Religious leaders, foreign envoys, injured victims and families attended the event to remember those who were killed in the April 21st attacks. Religious leaders of all faiths lit candles to remember the deceased. A 2-minute silence was also observed in memory of them.
There is a heavy suspicion among us whether the government is protecting the former president because the attacks were carried out with the help of those in power at that time. Instead of filing cases based on the report of the Presidential Commission by taking weak measures of the existing cases, it is despicable that the Attorney General's Department is making a mockery of the sovereignty of the law. The IGP is responsible for the blood of the April 21st attacks. The government and the Attorney General's Department, which are citing ringleader Zawan Hashim and his associates along with Muslims linked to them as those responsible for the bombings, is not taking additional steps and not implementing the recommendations of the Presidential Commission over the political leaders, intelligence officials, senior police officials who did not take appropriate action. This raises suspicion as to whether the President, intelligence officials and senior police officials at that time had concealed warnings and allowed the attacks to happen to result in unrest among the people to give a candidate the advantage at the 2019 presidential election.
Now, people are continuing to take to the streets demanding justice not just for the April 21st attacks that struck the country in 2019, but also the crisis that they're facing at present. And this eventually led to a tense situation in Rambukana this week. And the police curfew imposed in Rambukana after tensions during the protest on Tuesday was lifted at 5 a.m. today. The police curfew was imposed on Tuesday night after a day of unrest as police used force to disperse anti-government protesters. Now, a senior police officer has tendered an apology to the Kegol Magistrates Court. This was for repeatedly using correction fluid in the B report produced by the police over the incident.
A senior police officer apologized to the Kegol magistrate on Wednesday after counsel reported facts to the court against Sri Lanka police over the killing of a protester in Rambukana. Counsel alleged that Sri Lanka police had deliberately changed certain sections of the B report in a conniving manner. The Kegol magistrate instructed for the Inspector General of Police be notified of the matter.
They tried to cover up the matter. The magistrate ordered for a B report to be submitted, and a spontaneous inspection was made. And during that process, it was observed that changes were made. The officers were questioned about it, and it was noted that this was an act of contempt. Senior counsel and President's counsel raised the matter. The magistrate ordered to seek Attorney General's advice and to take action to file the case.
The 18-year-old male arrested in connection with the Rambukana incident was released on two-person bails of 50,000 rupees each. Kegol magistrate Vasana Navaratna also ordered the suspect to be produced before the Kegol judicial medical officer, and the case is set to return to court on the 28th of April 2022.
As the economic crisis continues to worsen in the country, the government is trying to obtain another $500 million loan from India. This would be to purchase fuel by postponing the repayment of a $450 million debt to Bangladesh. Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris has told Reuters that India has extended two credit lines worth $2.5 million as of now. He has further noted that discussions are ongoing with China, while attention was also paid to obtain assistance from Japan, the United Arab Emirates, Oman and Qatar as well, while pointing out that assistance from the International Monetary Fund will take about 6 months to reach Sri Lanka, adding that it will come in tranches. Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris has said that during the intervening period, the government needs to find funds to keep the people supplied with essentials. The Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka has said the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the country's International Development Cooperation Agency have announced that China will provide emergency humanitarian assistance to Sri Lanka to help its people overcome current difficulties. In a tweet, the Chinese embassy noted that details of the aid will be released in the coming days. More crowds are joining protests opposite the President's office at Golface in Colombo. They're demanding the resignation of the government, including the President, and also calling for democratic reforms. Senator Senanaika joins us with the latest.
Many people from across the country are here in Golface protesting peacefully today as well. Now, as you can see, religious leaders and many people are here, and today marks the 3-year anniversary of the April 21st attacks. Now, in light of this anniversary, an alms giving was held, organized by the Catholics and many Catholic devotees, mainly family members of the victims of the April 21st attacks, in remembrance of the victims. I'm Senator Senanaika reporting for News First.
A moment of silence was observed at the Occupy Golface protest site in remembrance of the victims who lost their lives in the 2019 April 21st attacks.
At the Occupy Golface protest site opposite the President's office in Colombo, where Sri Lankans are demanding a change, a prayer service took place for the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. In addition, the Occupy Golface protest site went silent for 1 minute to remember the victims of the terror attacks that took place 3 years ago. Bishop Robert Marshall Andrade from the Diocese of Anuradhapura visited the protest site this morning to inquire into the well-being of Venerable Teri Pahasiri Dhammathera, who launched a Fast Unto Death campaign. Religious leaders, organizations as well as professionals are continuing to provide their support to the people's protest in Golface that demands the immediate resignation of the President and the government. Another group also protested against a shooting in Rambukana, where a protester was killed in police fire.
Sri Lanka's main opposition faction, the Samge Jana Balawege, submitted its draft proposals for a new constitution to the Speaker today.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී ක්‍රමවේදයකට ප්‍රවේශ වෙන අපේ යෝජනාව
Ranjit Madhur Bandara, the Secretary General of our party, submitted in writing to you a proposal that would pave the way for a democratic structure in Parliament. We propose to abolish the executive presidency through that amendment. Instead of the Parliamentary Council that simply acted as a post office, we propose to re-establish the Constitutional Council. We also propose to abolish the 20th Amendment and bring forth an amendment that has the favourable features of the 19th Amendment. We have included provisions on setting up independent commissions and implementing a favourable state administration system. The people are carrying out a struggle at the moment. Therefore, we propose to establish a state council with representation of civic groups to create a system in which the government has to listen to the voice of the people.
නිරන්තරයෙන්ම ජනතා හදගැස්මට සවන් දෙන ක්‍රමවේද අපි ස්ථාපනය කරනවා.
The shortage of essentials has also continued to affect the people in the country. Now, state-run Litrogas Lanka Limited says domestic gas cylinders will not be distributed to the market until the 25th of this month. The company says that they have not been able to import enough gas to release cylinders to the market.
Litrogas suspended the distribution of domestic gas cylinders on the 12th of April after it ran out of gas reserves. According to Litrogas, 2 ships, each carrying 3,600 metric tons of gas, are set to reach Sri Lanka on the 25th and the 26th of this month. Litrogas expects to resume the distribution of gas cylinders once the shipments reach the country. However, Litrogas noted that gas will be supplied continuously for factories, hospitals and crematoriums. People have been severely inconvenienced due to the shortage of domestic gas cylinders.
Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral has responded to an allegation made by MP Anura Priyadarshina with regard to decisions made on the currency.
This man alone floated the currency. The finance minister and the cabinet of ministers were not aware of this. Today we cannot impose a price on anything because of the arbitrary decision made by one person going against the advice of the IMF. Appointing unsuitable people to positions is the root cause for the economic crisis in the country. This government allowed some officials to work on their own and destroyed everything.
Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral in a statement said that the Monetary Board had, as a marked guidance, expressed its view as to the level at which forex transactions would take place. A clear decision had been taken to allow for the flexibility of the Sri Lankan rupee in the forex market. It would also be noted that from the 8th of April 2022 onwards, the Monetary Board under the new Governor and new Secretary, Treasury have continued with the above exchange rate policy without fixing a specified exchange rate, as the case immediately prior to the 7th of March 2022.
An altercation had broken out between the chairman and the deputy chairman of the Kataragama Pradesh Sabha.
The police stated that the clash had taken place yesterday as a result of a verbal argument. Footage of the dispute was recorded on a CCTV camera. Both injured are being treated at the Kataragama and Debaravava hospitals.
David Malpass is the president of the World Bank. He says the world is facing a human catastrophe from a food crisis arising from Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
The World Bank president warned that record rises in food prices were pushing hundreds of millions of people into poverty. He told foreign media that, quote, "It's a human catastrophe, meaning nutrition goes down. But then it also becomes a political challenge for governments who can't do anything about it. They didn't cause it, and they see the prices going up." Unquote. The World Bank calculates there could be a huge 37% increase in food prices, which is magnified for poor. The focus needed to be on increasing supplies across the world of fertilizers and of food, alongside targeted assistance for the very poorest.
The Chinese city of Shanghai further eased its weeks-long COVID-19 lockdown on Wednesday, despite mounting deaths and tens of thousands of new cases. But some residents are furious that uneven enforcement is still leaving them trapped at home.
China's largest city is inching towards reopening as businesses and residents grow increasingly desperate over closures and food shortages. Faced with the country's worst virus outbreak in 2 years, Shanghai has confined most of its 25 million people to their homes since last month, doubling down on the Communist Party's zero-COVID approach.
Well, you're up to date with the latest stories here on News First. Thanks for stopping by. I've been Hassan Shazali. This is News First, where the people come first. Take care and God bless.
The Gustav Mahler Orchestra of Colombo, in association with Omega Line Limited, presents the first orchestral Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, conducted by its chief conductor Srimal Veerasinghe, with acclaimed Sri Lankan violinist Anand Dabare as soloist, on the 23rd April at 7 p.m. at the Lionel Wen Theatre, Colombo 7. Call 078-780-3275 for reservations. Media sponsors TV1, Legends 966 and Yes 101.